Hi gang, this is Lisa McClendon, and we're going to talk a little bit more about headlines here. What they need to do, how to write good ones, things to look out for while you're writing headlines. Most importantly, headlines have to tell the story and sell the story. So you've got to tell people what's going on, but you also have to make them want to read the story. That's what a headline is supposed to do, not just tell the news, but invite people into the story to find out more, to figure out what all is happening. And sometimes, this doesn't have to be boring telling the story. You can start it off, with a kind of a catchphrase like, here's the news, here's how much KU has been billed. Or this one, which was a pretty tight spec in print, you get your sort of statistic of information here, 63 thefts in 2 weeks. You've got to choose your words pretty carefully. So we've got a story about people stealing cars that have been left running outside of QT or whatever. And so we've got to tell that story in a really short space here. And I think this headline does it really well. But you've also got to sell it. You've got to make people read the story here. Here's another one from print. And again, a tight spec on this one. It's a skinny headline, and you've got to really get people into the story. So, you've got last time it looked like this. Okay, it looked like what? What looked like what? I am intrigued. I am going to read the story. Now, when this story appeared on the website, it had more detail in it. It said something like, last time the weather forecast looked like this. 22 died in tornadoes. Because here again, for a web, you've got to have the keywords. So you've got to have weather, tornadoes in that for search purposes and to let people know what's going on. But in print, it's right there and you're like, whoa, I can just read this right here. I don't have to click. But here's an online one. They refuse to censor their products. Okay, who is they? All right, we know that something happened because Apple took them off the store in China, but it's like, okay, who is it? Who isn't censoring their podcast and what is it about? So again, that's sort of a little bit of a tease here that's going to get me to read a little further in the story. Okay, do make sure your headlines are clear. This one, the deer are not having a meeting in Platte Valley. They're having a meeting in Platte Valley about deer. Okay, so it's about, management of a herd and hunting and things like that. So be careful. Make sure the wording is clear to your readers. Also match the tone of the story. This is one from 9/11. Again, we've got probably 300 point type here. We have an exclamation point. The old J school maxim that they would tell you was you get one exclamation point in your career, use it wisely. We've backed off that probably a little bit with more electronic communication, but this was still very much a print situation. Use the whole front page of the paper, use a swear word here. This is San Francisco, they know their audience. Obviously, if you were, the New York Times, you're not gonna say something like that. Also, if you're, maybe a smaller paper, in a little bit more conservative area where your audience is expecting you not to put swear words in 300 point type on the front page, then you don't do that. But I will tell you that is how everybody was feeling that day. So they just said it. The rest of us were thinking it. This is a really important one, especially right now. Don't repeat a lie in your headline, because so many people read only the headlines and don't read the rest of the story. You don't want them going away with the impression that something may be true. And so this is one from Newsweek. So the headline technically is accurate. Kim Davis's lawyer did say the Girl Scout cookie sales promote sex and abortion. However, that is fake. That is not true. That is a lie. And this headline is really irresponsible because even though it is what the person said wasn't accurate. It wasn't true. But people could come away from that going, oh my God, Girl Scout cookies, really? And if they don't click through and read the story, then they're left with the absolutely incorrect impression from that headline. So you don't want to do that. This is a no headline. Also, don't be clickbait. The reason will shock you. No, come on, CNN. You're better than that. You'll never believe what happened next. Don't write your headlines like that. People are so over those. And how to tell if you're doing a headline or clickbait. Okay, good headlines are accurate, good headlines are in context, good headlines are very straightforward, and the story delivers what the headline promises. This is really important, okay? That whatever you say in the headline, the story is going to back that up. As opposed to clickbait, which may be misleading, it may exaggerate what's going on, it may be sensationalistic, and when you get to the story, it's a real letdown because the headline promised you something, wow, and the story really isn't. So don't do clickbait. Clickbait is bad. Do watch the art. If you have a list of safest cities for driving, don't put the picture of the upside down car on that. And I realize that, yes, art of, just cars driving on a street, not getting in wrecks is not as exciting as an upside down car, but either change the headline or change the art. If there's a reason you're running a picture of a car wreck, because maybe this place is one of the least safe places for driving, then put that in the headline. But the headline and the art have to work together, okay? They have to work together. And this goes for online too. I saw this tweet not that long ago where they were talking about Kim Jong-un's aunt appearing in public, except this is Kim Jong-un. So, don't put his aunt in the headline and then run a picture of him, because that is not who she is. That is not what she looks like here. And this, so match the art here. Choose a picture that's going to work with that. Do watch your wording. We don't want to be recycling seniors. That's a bad idea. One of the things on the not funny list, as in things that are not funny and we should not use puns, wordplay, or jokes to refer to them as news, is the Holocaust. So when you are doing a football preview, don't go camp concentration instead of concentration camp. That's a really bad pun and bad wordplay. Don't do that. Or this one, how you can profit from Ebola. Okay, great. Like, we really want people, yes, I suppose people are profiting from Ebola, but that just sounds a little in bad taste. They did actually really quickly fix that headline, stocks involved with Ebola. Now, of course, if you're investing in stocks involved with Ebola, you're trying to make money and profit from Ebola. But the headline is not quite as mercenary the second time around. So just be careful about that. No wordplay on people's names, okay? This is just a really cheap way to get a headline. Sometimes you're making a pun. Sometimes you're sort of making fun of somebody's name that he's heard it all before, so don't. I use these examples. This is from when Brandon Green played at KU, the University of Daily Kansan here, the Lawrence Journal World here. Gosh, they both had the same idea. Well, guess what? It wasn't really all that clever then, was it? Just come up with something that's a little more newsy. All right, don't state the obvious. All right, this is, what else would dominate a shootout other than gunfire? Really? Is this telling us anything? This is not telling us anything. So find something that's a little bit more informative for your headline. All right, well, where else would you hide a submarine except in the sea? Like, okay, what is this headline actually telling us here? I'm not really sure. Like, you put submarines in the sea. This is normal. So, yeah, figure out what's actually the news here and put that in your headline. Do watch out for typos. This one is pretty common because spell check won't flag it because it's a word. It's just not the word that you want. If you work in print, text, not even print, you will make this mistake at some point. Hopefully it will not be in a headline preceding the word input. It'll happen. Hopefully it'll be buried in a long city council story or something like that, and no one will see it. Double check your headlines. Be really careful about that. You also kind of have to keep a dirty mind. I talk about channeling your inner Beavis. Read your headline like a 12-year-old boy would read the headline, and just make sure that it's not unintentionally, dirty or funny or something like that, because if it can be read that way, people will read it that way. And these are, pretty innocuous headlines otherwise. It's just that they can be read another way. And, then people are going to laugh at it and probably put them all over the internet, which is not how you want to go viral. That is not the ideal way of going viral. This one too, not just could be read another way, but poor Bartolo, his name is Cologne. And just, no, let's just not even go there. A few other guidelines for headlines. Make sure any name that you are using in a headline is a headline name. And what I mean by a headline name is this a name that everybody is going to instantly recognize, okay? For the president, obviously, you can put Trump in a headline. You can put Obama in a headline. You can put Biden in a headline, and people will know who those people are, okay? But for people who are maybe not so well known, don't make people guess who this person is. For local news here in Lawrence with KU at the Kansan, yeah, you can put self in a headline here in Lawrence in Kansas at KU. You could put Gerard in a headline at KU because people know that's the chancellor. But other people, yeah, maybe not. Make sure abbreviations are commonly understood. That's why I have this headline here, what is this? What is this? Also, we have this extra space in the headline. That's not great. But, we've got squems to discuss Hannah Moo, and it's what is going on here? You get what, we call alphabet soup, where people are just looking at letters and it doesn't mean anything to them. So try not to do that. I know that sometimes you have a tight spec and not a lot of space, but make sure if you're abbreviating something, people really do understand what that is. And watch out for verbs that are also nouns. An interesting feature of English grammar is that we don't have a special marker that says this word is a verb, this word is a noun. If you've taken another language, you know that this happens in some languages, a verb has to have a verb ending or a noun has to have a noun ending. It doesn't work that way in English, so be really careful when you've got words that can go both ways, because sometimes that can lead to confusion. And one kind of confusion that it leads to is what we call crash blossoms. And that's a headline that is confusing to readers because it can be read more than one way, and people are like, what? This is the original headline here that gave us the name Crash Blossoms. It's violinist linked to JAL crash, blossoms, okay? Blossoms is the verb here. This is just who the violinist is, but people read it as violinist is linked to JAL crash blossoms. And people were like, what is a crash blossom? They did not understand that, because a blossom can be a verb or it can be a noun. And so that's how this name for this kind of headline came about, from this very headline right here. Other examples of this, this one was from USA Today, which I just still think is kind of funny. 1 million get shot to save. It's okay, I may want to save on my loan, but I'm not willing to take a bullet for it. What they meant was get a shot, a chance, not an injection, but actually a chance. So this is really a bad headline, no matter what. Here's a tweet from AP. Dutch military plane carrying bodies from Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 crash lands in Eindhoven. No, it's from the crash, and then the plane landed. But we got crash lands, that's in there. This headline here, several years later, I still don't know what this headline is actually trying to say. And this is really a great example of, here's a word that can be a verb or a noun. Here's a word that can be a verb or a noun. This word can be a verb or a noun. This word can be a verb or a noun, and this word can be a verb or a noun. So we've got 5 words out of 8 words in this headline that could be a verb or a noun, and it really just doesn't make any sense at all. So again, be clear, make sure that people can immediately understand a headline. And just one last set of reminders. I've said this before, but I'm going to put this again here just to remind you. Headlines need to be accurate, so they've got to tell the news and tell the news accurately. They need to be correct, no typos, no grammatical mistakes. They need to be clear and concise. Okay, no crash blossoms. Don't use extra words if you don't need them. Be interesting. Make people want to read the story. Write for the platform. You're going to write a little differently for print, for search, for your website, for social, for when you tweet it out, for when you write a news alert about what's going on that you're pushing to people's phones. All of those are going to be worded a little bit differently. It doesn't mean they're going to be really different necessarily, but they're going to be a little bit different because you are writing each one specifically for a platform. And they need to have a verb because something happened. So you're telling people what happened. And if you're telling people something happened, you've got to have a verb that says what happened.